Hi there, my name's Vince from mymatevince.com, and in this video today is the start of a brand new series called A Look Inside, where I take apart something to see how it works. How has it been engineered? And I think this is going to be a great one to kick off the series, because I had this as a child. This is my own one. I went to my dad's house to get this, and I used to play this for hours on end with my best friend John. And it was great because you have to get 9 goals for it to win. So you can see they're going up 6, 7, 8, and then after the 8th goal, you then get the cup as the 9th goal. So yeah, I just loved it. I love the fact that you could take the stand off here with all the supporters and get to like the extra balls and the players and stuff like that. If you look at this one down here, can you see I've actually slanted his little kicker so that it can lob the ball. So, you know, I did this when I was probably like 10 years old or something. But if you look at that, can you see? Go underneath it to chip the ball up, while all of these other ones are just flat. So believe it or not, this is still working. This hasn't been turned on in, it must be at least 30 years. Put some batteries in, hit the switch 3 or 4 times, all of a sudden it livened up. Now, why do I think this will make an interesting one? Well, it looks all pretty on the outside, but what's going on underneath? I mean, it makes a huge amount of noise. It does automatic corners, automatic throw-ins, and all the players move up and down the pitch and rotate as well. And when they get to the end of their travel, what's stopping it from breaking? It just seems to go, stop, make a few clicking noise, and then you just move on to the next one. I mean, like, this has had some abuse over the years, and it's still working fine. Yes, the goalkeepers are now missing because they've come off their stands. So these are the keepers here, the yellow one and the green one. And what you used to do is, you used to move this here left and right, and then they would just move left and right like that. So that was just purely a little mechanical thing. But if you watch this now, look, how does the throw-ins and the corners work? So here are the throw-ins and here are the corners, and if I turn it on, it's very noisy. Look at that. Put it into a corner here. Yeah, and then you can move up and down like that. Obviously it's a 2-player game, one either side, and then you get a goal. When it goes in, it comes out the side there. So it's let me just show you the end of travel as well. So listen to this. Yeah, you can see it like vibrating. But how does that not break it? What's happening in there to stop that from, you know, so that's to stop it from some breaking? Because I know we wouldn't have been doing it for hours on end at the end, but just in normal gameplay, you do go to the extremes of the travel, especially when you're just trying to get the ball. So when you're just on the edge there, you're trying to will it to go more, like that. It was honestly a skillful game, not a game that you got bored of in 5 minutes. And I've just remembered, I painted them up when I was young as well. Look, so that's Tottenham. And this is Arsenal, so they're like North London rivals. Oh, I'm excited to see the inside of this. So, let's take the batteries out. Let's pop all the players off. And we've got a load of just crosshead screws in these posts here and also all in here. Let's take them all off and see if it comes apart. So I believe this came out in 1984 and ran all the way to the mid-1990s. I'm going to have to take off these things. Here we go. Whew, right. Oh. This is going to take some working out. Okay, now, what have we got? What have we got? Well, obviously the power comes from the batteries. They're 1.5 volts each in series. So that's 3 volts running down these wires here, going to this switch. Well, the yellow one's going into the switch, and then when you turn it on, it travels down the blue one, which goes into that side of the motor there, and the black wire goes to the other side of the motor there. So there's a motor just here. So it looks like it might be just working off the one motor. So should we start at the motor and then start working our way through to the rest of it? So we don't need to worry about the goalkeeper because that's obvious. You're just moving it left and right, and it's is just on this little post here to stop it kind of wobbling away. These two posts and these two posts. So that's obvious how that works. Actually, I suppose before we take it apart, we should turn it on and actually see what the mechanism's doing. Because once we take it apart, we won't be able to do that. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom you in, and then I'm just going to be messing with it forward and backwards, trying to work it out myself. This has already come out now. And then, actually, before we even turn it on, so we're going to have this spinning here, which is turning this here. Oh, okay, right. Let's just zoom in a bit. So you see now, when I'm turning that there, it's not engaging in anything until we go forward and back here. And then it will engage, for example, this one, or you can engage both at the same time. You can engage all 5 at the same time. And when we engage it here, it's then gonna, if this is turning this way, it's then rotating that round. Right, that's at the end of its travel now. So let's just lift that and let's bring that to here. Right, so when we go forward, it moves it this way, and all it's doing is quite simply hitting against these things here. So that's obvious how that works there. Yeah. So this is always going to be this spin in the same direction. This is really clever. So then when we go here, it's rotating this way, and it starts bringing it up the field. And then if we were to go that way, it's still rotating this way, but it brings it down the field. Okay, that's actually quite simple, but clever. And on this one here, can you just see if I just take it out here, it's just on a worm. It's like a worm gear, isn't it, on here, on this travel. So when it turns, the worm gear is turning, and it's just pulling up and down this, well, kind of like a rack and pinion, but this is like a worm, isn't it? It's just pulling up and down here. Now, how does it stop it from breaking when it gets to the end of its travel? So when it's there, it's just gone to, because it's a worm wheel, it's just gone to the end of its travel, and it just keeps turning, so it's just gripping the last one all the time, I think. Hold on, let's get that out of the way. Let's keep that in the middle. Yeah, there you go. You see it's just vibrating at the end now, because it can't go any more anywhere. And when it goes back, the worm wheel starts grabbing again. See, this is why I think I'm going to love this series, because it's kind of like those moments when the penny drops, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's how it works. So yeah, look at that one there. All that's happening is the worm gear is constantly turning, and it's not going to break those gears underneath, and it's just allowing it to slip. Ah, it's allowing it to slip because of this bit here. Can you see this bit? It's like on a plastic thing here, so it's allowing it to give and then go back to its original position. Now actually that plastic bit is really important, because it also catches on the other side that we looked at a minute ago. So it forces the player back whether it is up or down the pitch, because it hits against mouldings on the red bottom cover. If that little plastic bit broke, then the player would not return onto the bottom red gear, because the worm wheel gear would just keep turning, and then it wouldn't be able to grip back on the red gear. So I didn't realise it when I was actually filming, but that little black clip is actually really important on each one of the players. Whether it's up or down the pitch, you need that there. Right, that is making sense. That's making sense. Right, okay, so that's that one, and then we have the same thing going on this side, but obviously everything must be just underneath. We'll have to have a look at that later, but can you see we've got 2 bars underneath as well for the opposite player. So the bars on top are all for the player on this side, and then the bars underneath are going to be for the players on this side. So that makes sense. Now, what about the rotating of it? So that's spinning right now. So the forward and back is done on this axle here, and then the rotating is done on the axle next to it. So every single one of them have 2 axles, forward and back on this axle, this axle, this axle, and this axle, and the rotating is done on the next axle. So let's see if we can work out how that rotating is working. So when we rotate it like that, we've got a little gear here and a gear here, which I suppose are kind of like bevel gears, aren't they, because they're going at a right angle. So when that turns that, it's simply, has another bevel gear here, which is turning that there, which is turning the yeah, gravity. Yeah. So when the player's weight is on it and when gravity's down, you can see when it's like that, it's turning, and it's turning the player on top. Like so. Right, so I understand that. Oh, and all these gears here line in place, because if you look underneath it here, can you see we have a little groove that each of them go in. So the gear sits in here, the gear sits in here, and here. So these are just all loose. Well, I'm going to pop some batteries in just to show that work in there. Isn't that amazing? There you go, jumping around at the end of the travel and jumping around at the end of the travel and then rotating. Right, I think we understand how that works there. So before I take away this section here, because this is just going to be a mirrored effect of here down below, isn't it? But I will do it at the end just to make sure, because hold on a minute, how does this side get travel? Oh, okay, so this side gets travel from the motor, so it looks like there might be just one motor going down here, and then another axle comes out here down at the bottom and just mirrors it over here, but we will double check that at the end. I think what we should work out now is how these corner kickers work. And so we've got throw in here, corner, 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 and the corner in there. So I suppose this is the one that's exposed, so we should be able to work out what's going on here. So this is constantly turning. So the corners and the throw-ins are always on the go. You know, they're kicking up every so many seconds. So let's just see if we can work out what's happening. So that's on a spring here, and that goes underneath here. So that's on a spring, so it always wants to be pulled to the top. So basically, it's always at the very top of its level. And now, let's take this off. Okay, so we've got a ramp. So it's always at the top of the level until it goes along here, and that will pull it down, because obviously when it's high on the ramp here, it's at the very, very bottom. So it's always at the top, and then when it joins this bit here, it pulls it down slowly, slowly, slowly as it works its way up here until it gets to the very top of this here, and then bang, it releases it. So that's really simple. That's really simple. So I presume that's how they all work. So this is constantly turning, and that's constantly doing this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Oh, and they do it at different times. So this one's doing it at a different time here. Right, that's straightforward enough. The fact that it works at different times makes no difference to the game at all, because it doesn't matter where the board is. Every time it goes in one of this, it's going to be kicked out every couple of seconds. So I think what we'll do is let's take apart this one here just to make sure it's working exactly the same way, because this has two. So how's it doing two of them at the same time? Right, so we know it's turning from this worm gear here. So let's just focus purely on this and see if we can work it out. Right, oh, easy. Look underneath it. We have the same as the other side, but what's clever is, because this is a longer, like, is it called a fulcrum? I'm trying to think back to science now. Like a seesaw, yeah? Because it's longer, we don't need much movement here to have a lot of movement here. So when we've got a short little lever here, then we need a big kicker at the bottom. But when we have a small one here, because we've got a long one here, it can be smaller here and have the same amount of movement here. So that's quite clever. Right, so that's the top, but look at the bottom. Yeah, down and then up. Down and then up. And now look at the top one. Do you know what I love about toys like this? Now that you understand, now that you see it, it's kind of like, oh, that's easy. But that's what makes it so ingenious, is the fact that it's not overly complicated. Hence the reason it's still working, 30 some years. Well, how old is it now? This is probably from about 1986. So you're looking at something which is about 34 years old, aren't you? It's amazing, and that's what made the people that designed these things in the first place geniuses. But what I would say is that these things would have been borrowed from other toys. So obviously it wasn't exactly as if this came out and it was the first toy of its kind. This system was probably already being used in another toy somewhere, and then they might have only come up with one new idea for this TOMY Super Cup Football, and then another company would kind of look at the product, how it's working, and then they would use it in their own one. But it's still, I think that's fascinating. Okay, so we fully understand how that works there now, don't we? So now there's not much left, really. Let's put that back together. This is going to be the same thing going on here, because you can see that this wheel now does this one here, and also underneath it, it's... actually, I'm going to move to Handycam for this bit, because underneath it, this has a massive kicker, probably because it's so short on this one here. Now I'm on Handycam. Look underneath it. Look how big that kicker is. It's massive. What about this one here? But look, let's take this one apart and then we can see exactly what's going on under there. Let's take off the wires. Okay. Switch. Right, first of all, let's see how the clip... Oh, they're here, right in front of me. Look, here we go. So really simple. There you go. You can see how that's working there. Just a little bit of flexible plastic. I love this toy. Right, so it is all working from the one motor, isn't it? Again, the kickers here are exactly the same as before. It's just that this time the kicker here for the middle one, can you see that it's so... oh no, this is doing 3. Oh, it's just getting even more interesting. Right, this is doing 3. How? How is this? So this is doing this one. Oh, okay. This wheel here is doing this one here and this one here as it goes round. So as it goes, let's take this out. As it goes there, it does that one, and then it does this one here. There. But there's also one underneath it to do this one here. And I suppose they couldn't do that on this side because the battery compartment was in the way. On this one, it is still just top and bottom, but look at the size of the kicker on that one there, because it must be... Ah! Again, we're on the short side. You see, it's being hinged on this side, but we're now powering it from the short side. It's amazing. Look at that. Yeah, you can see all 3 of them going. Excellent. Right, switch we don't need to worry about. That's just when you flick it over here, all it's doing is joining both of those wires together. So that's simple. So from this side here, we've got the yellow and black wire, positive and negative. So we've got 3 volts going straight into the motor here, because we've got the voltage going up to here. There's a break. When you join it together, it joins it. And then we've got the blue and black here. So the negative's going straight to the motor, and then the yellow is being broken here. Continues on the blue when you hit the switch. So we've definitely got 3 volts going straight into that motor there. Now, to make it fair, these 2 have to spin at the same speed, don't they? Because otherwise it's not fair. So if we just forget about the worm wheel in the middle here, all it is this is being fed from this gear here, and this is being fed from here. Now, this is what I don't understand at the moment, but hopefully as maybe this series goes on, I will have more understanding. So we've got a very small thing here. So this is going to be spinning super fast. So if I just take this out and watch, you can see how fast that's spinning. Yeah. So by taking a small gear and putting it onto a big gear, we're reducing the speed right down, but we're giving it a lot more power. So for example, I can stop this really easily. Yeah. But now if I was to put it onto the big gear, I'd find it harder to stop. So for example, now if I was to put it on here, yeah. I'm not going to do it because I'll break it, but you're going to find it harder to stop because it's got a lot more power, a lot more torque. But now, I suppose the reason they've done it like this, because this is on this one here, so this has reduced the speed down. But now look, can you see that goes on to a reduced gear here? So the gear size here and the reduced gear there must equal exactly the same revolutions as this one and this one here. Otherwise it wouldn't be fair, because one side would be able to move forward and back on the pitch quicker than the other side. So I don't know how to work it out. Is it as simple as, it wouldn't be as simple as just counting the teeth, I don't think. It's to do with the diameters and stuff like that. But if you were to measure that gear on that gear there, then that must equate to this gear on this gear here. So this and this must equate to this and this in revolutions. So I think there we have we kind of worked out exactly how this all works. I feel pretty confident there. So all we have to do now is let's take apart this side just to have a look at the underneath, just to make sure it is an exact copy of this side over here. Do you know what I've just noticed, which is strange? Sorry for pausing. Look, we've got two on here and we haven't got any on here. What? Obviously these have just been knocked out from me just messing around with it now. But look, we haven't got any on here, yet we've got two on there. So that looks like it was a mistake in the factory. Unless, of course, I had this apart as a child, which I don't remember doing. But it is possible, because I did take apart most things. There you go, I've improved it. Right, so we have got, yeah, that's going to be the same as that side. Now, let's have a look here. So when we move forward and back, it's exactly the same situation here. Just reverse, just underneath. And let's just look underneath to make sure we've got that same bevel gear thing going on. Yeah, we've got exactly the same thing going on there. So that's how the player rotates when you spin that there. So there we go. I'm happy with that. I fully understand how this game works, and I think you have to admit it's lovely. How all that has been put together for a toy is lovely. And they sold this, because I've seen on the box, for £15. There you go, £15.95. In fact, no, that's crossed out. £14.95 was the new price. So £15, and obviously people are making profit on that. It's good. Of course, £15 was quite a bit of money back in 1986, but still, what a really interesting toy. I'm going to just pop it back together now, and then just finish up, just making sure that it's still working. These are put in there just to stop a little bit of wear, so it's going to be basically metal against metal that's doing the spinning, and then the metal collet here goes into the plastic, so it's not metal against plastic the whole time. Also, while putting it back together, if you have a look, all these things are square, and these are square as well to stop slippage. So if these were round and these were round, then it would be just, there'd be way more chance of, for example, the worm gear slipping and these things slipping. But by making them square, they're not going to go anywhere. There we go, back together again. Not the easiest thing to put back together, but just when you take your time and think about what goes where, it's obvious. So obviously with these springs here, not only does it centre this, it centres the gears. More importantly, it centres the gears in the middle here. Otherwise, every time you don't touch it, it would be constantly, the plate would constantly be moving up and down. So I just need to put the cover back on now, do up the screws at the bottom, and then we're all done. So there we have it, it's all finished and it's all working. You can see they're all spinning there, turn it on. Oh, gold. And if you have a look, the throw-ins work and the corners work. So that is it. A noisy toy, but immensely fun and amazingly, in my opinion, amazingly engineered. It's nice to see how the magic works. So yeah, that is it for this video. I'm excited for the future, and I hope you are too. If you liked it, give it a double thumbs up, and please subscribe for more all of these type of videos. Take care. Bye now.